Hello and welcome to the best books I read in 2024. I am your host, Taylor Ann Wright. Hello and welcome to the channel. I am an indie author. These are my two books, Venture Below and Venture Beyond. They are available on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited if you want to check them out. They are a YA fantasy filled with romance, pirates, fugitive princess. Need I say more? Lots of action, fast read. You could blaze through it. Today, we're going to be talking about the 10 books that I fell in love with and that I think you should read. Maybe you're new here. You've never met me before, but just let me hold your hand. Trust me. I'm also going to be reading the reviews for these books to better encapsulate how I was feeling immediately after reading the books. Grab yourself a little fun drink and let's dive in to the best books I read in 2024. This was really the year that I broadened my horizons for classic literature, so there are a few classics here on this list. Just trust me, these are ones that I think would be easy to dive into if you've never read a classic before in your life. The first book I'm going to be talking about today is Rebecca. This is a book I highly recommend. It was absolutely phenomenal. I did read this back in high school, which was over 10 years ago, but we don't talk about that. I don't think I understood what Daphne was saying in this book when I read it at the time, and rereading it again as an adult, I think it changed the literal chemistry in my brain cells. I will say the beginning is a little bit slow, but once you get to the manor, things pick up. It is definitely gothic. There is definitely some mystery. I say just go into this and vibe. A lot of these books I'm going to recommend are just ones that I think you need to go into. And you know what? Hey, if you don't vibe with it, feel free to DNF. I take no offense to that. I'm a huge supporter of DNFing. I think life is too short to read books you don't enjoy. This one took me a little bit to get into, but once I was in it, I couldn't put it down. My review says, wow, I get it. Such a great book with such solid characters and pacing. The writing was breathtaking. Don't mind if I'm just staring off into the void. I'll be thinking back on this book for a long time. And that's very true. I still think back on that book very often, especially the ending. It just... wow. Also, I haven't read Jane Eyre. I have heard that Rebecca is compared to Jane Eyre quite often, and I have not read Jane Eyre. So maybe that's one of the reasons why I really enjoyed it. Don't take my word for that. Next up, we have another classic, which is... this book literally gets me so physically hyped. The Count of Monte Cristo. This is a behemoth of a book, and I actually did begin a reread of this story where I'm going to be annotating it because I loved it that much. The Count of Monte Cristo is a story of revenge. We are following Edmond Dantes, and he is a 19-year-old sailor who basically gets framed up for something and he gets thrown into prison. It's just so good. So he's in prison for 14 years, and once he escapes, he takes on this new persona, the Count of Monte Cristo. He now has a large fortune. I will not spoil how he gets it, and it's just so good. It's a story of revenge, but then also just a glimpse into the lives of these people. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It's one of those books you just have to go with the flow, go with the ride, and follow these characters. My review says, this is a classic I never thought I'd have the motivation to pick up, and boy am I glad I did. The way I was instantly drawn into the world and the writing style. One of my new favorite books. The very ending left me a little hollow and wishing for more, but when 99% of it had me enamored, I can't overlook it. A fantastic novel I will definitely be reading again. And that is true. I do remember the last, 1%, quite literally, just didn't hit the way that I wanted to. I think I was hoping a little bit for more tragedy, and it kind of gave you a happily ever after in a sense. Genuinely, I was totally ready to just read this tragedy, and I think that's what a couple other people have some issues with when they read The Count of Monte Cristo is the ending. So next up, we have none other than the Song of Achilles. I read this back in March of 2024, and I have chills all over my body just thinking about this novel. I mean, if you're here on booktube, I'm sure you have seen the Song of Achilles. I'm sure you've seen people rant and rave about this for the past few years. And I was one of those people. I picked this up not really knowing what I was going to get myself into. I already love Greek literature. I love Greek mythology. I eat it up every single time. So I was like, okay, let's take a gander at this. Let's see if it's for me. Boy, oh boy. It was so good. You definitely have to let yourself kind of fall into the writing and into the storytelling that's happening. I will say that. It took me a little bit to really feel invested. I'm pretty sure I read this over 2 days. Yep, I read this over 2 days. I can rant and rave about this book, but I'm just going to read you my review. 6 stars. I get it. I understand the hype. It deserves it and so much more. This book was breathtaking and surpassed my expectations. Heart equals shattered. I also feel like the story of Achilles and Patroclus is one that I knew, one that I expected, one I anticipated, and yet Madeline freaking Miller found a way to make it even more traumatizing. The last bit of this book changed the trajectory of my life. I know a lot of people have problems with Achilles specifically and his character, but to me, a character is only as good as their flaws. The fact that he was so human and that he had these big problems and issues and reasons that we would not like him, and yet Patroclus still loved him, still sacrificed so much for him, I think it's just proof of the humanity of this story. And personally, I'm obsessed with it. I want to reread it this year. I literally read this in 2 days, so I would love to take my time with it, really annotate it and underline my favorite writing bits of this book because it was that good. If you haven't gotten around to it, pick it up. Do it. Do it. This is your sign to pick it up. Kind of in that same realm, I kind of view them as similar, is The Six Deaths of the Saint, which this is not that book. This is the cover of The Six Deaths of the Saint. But this book right here is the physical copy of The Six Deaths. So that's why I figured I would show it in this video. I found this in a thrift store. It is my prized possession. The Six Deaths of the Saint. I read this back in January of 2024 and it changed my life. It is on Kindle Unlimited. It is a part of like an Amazon original series, and I was reading that series and I read this and it changed my life forever. I don't even know what to tell you when it comes to this book, so what we're gonna do is read my review. As you can see, I've read this a couple different times and I have updated my review every time I've read it. 6 stars. This may be the best thing I have ever read in my life. I have no words, no notes. 10 out of 10. Bury me with this. And that was the first time I have ever felt that visceral of a reaction where I'm like, literally, when I am in my grave, I want you to put a physical copy of this book with me. That's how visceral it was. And I still feel that way. Reread this story as an audiobook, and I'm so happy to say it still lives up. Actually, make this a 7-star book for me. I don't think anything will be able to beat this. Welp, 3rd time reading this. I took my time and highlighted my favorite bits. Yet again, still the best thing I have ever read. 7 stars, no notes, bury me with this. The last time I reread it, 4th read of this work of art, and I swear to you, it gets better and better each time. I continue to be mind blown as to how stunning this story is. You're probably asking yourself, what is this even about? And it is about this woman who is the saint of the story. And that's the thing too, the characters don't even really have names. This is, I think, 30 pages. Is this 30 pages? I'm pretty sure this is 30 pages. It's a very, very short read, and the fact that it had the power, the oomph, the writing to create such a deep-rooted emotional reaction out of me is, I literally could tear up just thinking about it. Oh my gosh. I understand some people may not like this book the way that I do, and I accept that, even though I think you're kind of wrong. But The Six Deaths is basically about this girl who is taken under the wing of this prince, is literally raised and crafted to become this insane warrior, and she leads his armies. It's so much deeper than that too. Go into this book fully accepting what you're about to go into. It does switch from second person, which is the you are doing this, you go here, you do that perspective, to the first person perspective, which is I am now looking at this, I am stepping here. I just don't want that to be jarring when you read it. It was for me, and it worked on a level I fear I will never ever find again. It worked for me. Some people I was seeing in the GoodReads like reviews and stuff, it didn't work for them, and that's okay. So I feel like warning you now and telling you, hey, this does have second person, but it does it in a way I've never seen someone be able to do it before. Maybe that'll help your journey with The Six Deaths of the Saint. I will say too, if you are not new, you have heard me rant about this book many, many times, and I fear my hyperfixation is coming back because I am going to be rereading this. We're going to move on now. That was enough chatting about The Six Deaths. We all know I could go on and on and on about it. Next up is Flowers from the Void by Gianni Washington. Now, this is a collection of horror short stories. Oh my god. I was just rewatching the reading vlog where I read Flowers from the Void. I still don't have a physical copy of it, and I think I'm going to do that today. actually. I think I'm gonna buy it on Amazon so I can have a physical copy and annotate it. I read this as an ARC. I don't know when it came out, to be honest with you, but it is out already. This collection was so phenomenal. It varied so much on the topic. There were definitely some based on monsters. There was a shadow being. There was one on witches. There was a short story on the relationship between two childhood boys. There was so much going on with this short story collection, and somehow she managed to weave them all together in this beautiful, I mean, I literally imagine it like a patchwork quilt. Like, it was just so phenomenal, and it wrapped me up, and I just felt so enveloped in this collection. I cannot shout enough how incredible Gianni Washington's writing is, specifically. Like, yes, the short stories, their concepts, and what they discussed and stuff were phenomenal, but her writing, the writing in this damn book was so good. I literally find myself like staring off sometimes, and I'm just like thinking of one of these stories, and I don't realize it's one of the stories, and I'm like, what was that? And I'm like, holy shit, it's from Flowers from the Void. I'm gonna go ahead and read you my review because I will continue to talk about this forever. Thank you, Nat Galley, for the advanced reader's copy of Flowers from the Void by Gianni Washington. This short story was incredible. I can't say this enough. If you are a fan of horror or want to dive more into this genre, you need to read the short story collection. The two I loved most were Go, It is the Sending, and Under Your Skin. I grew to care so much for each world and character that I wish they had their own novel. The writing was phenomenal. Some of them were less impactful than others, but even those I feel will haunt me. This was a chilling and disturbing collection in the best way possible. I look forward to reading more by Gianni Washington in the future. 4.75 rounded up. And the reason I said 4.75 is because it wasn't like every single one was a 5-star story for me, which I think that's really difficult to do in a short story collection. And the fact that I enjoyed so many out of that collection, and the more time that I've had to sit back and like let the stories kind of mull over in my head, the more the ones I feel like I didn't enjoy so much in the moment are the ones that are haunting me. And I'm like, what? So that's why I so desperately want to pick up this collection again and reread them, because it just, there's so many, dude. And like I said, I seriously wish each short story was actually a full-length novel, because the ones that didn't impact me the most were because I feel like we didn't spend enough time with the characters or with the world, but I want a full-length novel of it. Oh God, especially the beginning ones, they were longer. They just hit so hard, dude. I gotta move on. I'm gonna purchase that book like literally right after this video. Okay, next up we have First Time Caller. For this one, I'm just gonna read you my review, okay? 6 stars. I seriously don't know what to do with myself. This has to be the best romance book I have ever read. The way I fell head over heels for Aidan Vallon, I was physically giggling and kicking my feet at this book. The chemistry between him and Lucy is unmatched. If you want a story with great vibes and banter / interactions that'll make you swoon, add First Time Caller to your TBR right now. This story also had so much depth. Oh my God, I cried the last 10% straight of this book. The interaction with his dad, oh my God, sobbing. If you know, you know. I cannot believe I was privileged enough to read this book as an ARC. I will 1000 billion% be buying a physical copy as soon as this comes out. Side note, I have never seen Sleepless in Seattle, I know, and now plan on making it a top priority after reading this story, which was a retelling. I cannot wait for the other book in the series. This was my first ever read by B.K. Borison, and I will add everything she has ever written to my TBR. Oh my God, I have never seen someone create a more magical connection. And I stand by that. 1000 billion%. I will say it's the best rom-com I have ever read. I don't think I would say it's the best romance anymore because of another book on this list. But in terms of rom-com, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So incredibly well done. It balanced having quirky little scenes with also having depth to the characters and their backstories. I was invested in both of their lives separately and more specifically when they were together. Also, I don't think I've ever read a rom-com as well done as what B.K. Borison did. I think her writing style is just so fantastic. So I am definitely going to be reading multiple other B.K. Borison books in my future. The next book on our list is Promise Me Sunshine, which is the romance book that I was just talking about. Again, I'm just going to read you my review. This book was phenomenal. I will think about it daily and know I will for the rest of my life. Promise Me Sunshine is a book of healing, laughter, romance, and falling back in love with life. I've read books on grief before, and this is the first time I truly felt seen and understood. As someone who has had a major loss in my life, I've been searching for a book to capture the ebbs and flows loss brings you through. I felt hope, I felt joy, I related to both Lenny and Miles in different ways, being the one to help pull someone out and being the one carried from the darkness. I cannot wait for the day I hold this book in my hands physically so I can reread it over and over. So in this book, the female main character, her best friend passes away and she is really dealing with the loss of her best friend. This was more than her best friend, this was her person, her biggest platonic soulmate, and basically their lives always revolved around each other. And so after losing her entire world just crumbles all around her. It really displays grief and how it can manifest in people's lives in a very well done way. The female main character meets the male main character. It's very grumpy sunshine in the beginning, and you learn that he has also lost some people very close to him. He literally helps her heal, and it is one of the best romance stories I have ever read. It is so deep in its topics, but it does it so well. It makes you smile, it makes you believe in love after death, and it's just, so good. I literally need to reread that very, very soon because I have been thinking about a certain scene in it, and it just keeps replaying over in my head, and I'm like, oh, that's from Promise Me Sunshine. I need to read that very soon. So I highly recommend. I don't remember when this one comes out. I will put it on the screen for you. Definitely add this to your TBR though. Next up is Writers and Lovers by Lily King. Where do I begin? This was my second Lily King, and it will not be my last. I am in love with the writing. I swear I underlined more in the 2 books I've read of hers than any others ever. Absolutely stunning. I related so much struggling as a writer, and the ending had me in tears. I was so proud. Wow, one of my favorite books ever. What's crazy is I feel like I read so many phenomenal books towards the last half of 2024 that this is still one of the best books I read last year, but compared to the other ones I just talked about, I think it's a little lower on the list. Writers and Lovers is literally about our main character who is dealing with loss. She's also a aspiring writer, aspiring author. She is pursuing this. She lives in New York, which I really loved the setting. It is about how she is torn between these 2 men and kind of these 2 different life paths that she could go down. That's about it. That's kind of all that really happens in this book. I would say it's more vibes than anything, but there is a lot of conversation about writing specifically, and the setting of New York itself was just really phenomenal. I genuinely really enjoyed this book and want to reread it very soon. Next up, we are going to be talking about The Twilight Wife, which I did read in my Fall Reads for 24 Hours video, if you want to check that out. Let's go ahead and read my review, shall we? What a whirlwind this book was. Hands down one of the best thrillers I have read. It didn't feel cheesy or predictable. I loved the layers of the overall story and was satisfied with the ending. Highly recommend this book for its atmospheric vibe as well as for how easy it is to devour it. Now, this was set on the Washington coast on like an island. It was very gloomy, very eerie. There's a lot of mystery going on. What happens is this 34-year-old marine biologist, Kyra Winthrop, remembers nothing of the diving accident that left her with a complex form of memory loss. That's all I'm really going to say. She is a marine biologist, like it says. That is, I think, what's so interesting about it is how it connects sea life and marine biology. There's just so many layers to this, as well as the twisty, immersive thrillerness of this whole story. It really captivated me. It's very short. I highly recommend this if you're looking for a thriller in 2025. Check out The Twilight Wife. Last but certainly not least, we have Oh Sinners. Oh Sinners is a book kind of told in 3 different ways, focuses on a cult. And I did not think that was going to be for me at all, but it shocked me with how much I love this book. The story is told through the eyes of a man investigating the cult. So he goes to investigate this cult by literally living with them in the Redwoods. It's his experience with them trying to bring him into the cult and have him join it, but then his resistance to it and kind of how he sees how easily people could fall into it and where they are kind of coming at him through these manipulative tactics and stuff. It's very interesting in that degree. The other perspective that is happening is told in the past, and it follows the cult leader and his experience in the Vietnam War, and that is where he found his awakening to this religion that the cult follows. It's so good. The conversation around the Vietnam War, the experience that Black men had being a part of this war, it was so captivating and informative. The element that really worked for me is that you don't know who the cult leader is in that story because it's told in third person, and you don't really find out until towards the end, and they all have nicknames. So you don't really know which one of these guys is going to have this awakening, which one of these guys is going to become the cult leader, and they each have different issues. And I would say there's one character specifically that you're thinking, oh, it makes sense for it to be them. But there's another character you're like, there's no way it could be that. It's just, oh my God. So then there was that element to it that kept you guessing, kept you on your toes the entire book up until the very, very end. The final element to this book is the documentary that was about this cult. And it breaks down this conspiracy that's happening about this cult. And it's kind of brushed over throughout the book. But then you get little snapshots of this documentary giving you the information of what allegedly happened. Oh my God. 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 This is the best book I read last year. It is the best book I read. The Six Deaths is still the best writing, but Oh Sinners, hands down, is the best book that I read. Let's read my review. Oh Sinners is one of the absolute best books I have read to date. There was so much depth to this story. I can't believe I had the privilege to read this as an arc. I will 1,000,000,000% be buying the physical copy as soon as it is out so I can annotate it. 3 stories all interwoven together to bring a memorable conclusion. I mean, wow. I didn't expect to be as enamored with these subjects as I was. I'm not usually interested in wars or documentaries or cults for that matter, but I was. The way Nicole crafted this story is unlike anything I have ever seen before. The writing was phenomenal. Every one of these characters felt so real. Farouk is now a permanent resident in my brain, as well as Odo. I am simply at a loss for words. I've thought about this book every day since finishing it, and know I will be for the rest of my life. If you are someone who loves depth in your characters and plots, as well as some twisty, turny plot points that keep you guessing, add this to your TBR. I am not kidding around here. This will now and forever be one of my favorite books of all time. Nicole Cuffey is now and forever an instant purchase author in my book. Thank you so much, NetGalley, for this advanced reader's copy and for introducing me to Nicole Cuffey. 6 stars, I'm not kidding. Farouk is the man that is investigating the cult, and Odo is the cult leader, by the way, so that you have a little bit more context around that review. I desperately need Oh Sinners. I'm pretty sure it comes out in March. I will put the date on the screen for you. Add it to your TBR. Just trust me on this. Just trust me. I fear she is not getting enough hype. She is not well known enough. I think she needs to be on New York Times bestseller. It is so good. I still have it in my Kindle library because I frequently go back to it and read quotes. I am baffled by how well done this book was. It also has a pretty major theme of talking about religion and religious psychosis specifically, and it was just so good. And it was also a very interesting read. So if you're like, that sounds really heavy, it was, but the way that she managed to write this book, it didn't really feel heavy. I don't know how to describe it, dude. It felt like I was in the head of these characters. They felt so real to me. I struggle to accept that it is fiction. I really do. It rivals The Six Deaths, I will say that. It really does for me. And that's saying a lot because The Six Deaths is everything to me. Oh my God, we did it. That was so long-winded. Thank you for being here if you are still here. Let me know if you are going to be adding any of these books to your TBR. As well, I would love to hear what your favorite book of 2024 was so I can add it to my TBR. Drop a book emoji down below so I know you made it this far. Thank you again so much to all of my members. Shout out to you guys. I love you so much. I did the opposite of this video where I talked about the worst books that I read in 2024, and that is for my members only because I fear those opinions are not for the masses. So if you want to be a member and you want to check that video out, the link is down below in the description. Make sure to give this video a like if you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe if you are not yet subscribed, and turn on post notifications so you can get notified every single time that I post a new video or when I go live. With that being said, I will see you in the next one. Bye!